James, back again. We've got a big one today. We've got cracking. Cracking in strata properties and community properties, multi-storey, single-storey, Adelaide, it's everywhere, right?
It is. And yeah, you have to keep me under control there, Tony, because I could seriously talk all day about this, as exciting as it is for everybody at home.
10-part series?
It could be a 20-part series. There's a whole university degrees probably dedicated to it. So, but look, basically, you're right, Adelaide, notorious for cracking. Generally speaking, it's caused by the dirt underneath the property, underneath the building. Adelaide's got some of the worst clay in the world. When I say it's worst, it's highly reactive. So it'll expand and contract with changes in its moisture content.
And so just from a basic perspective, there's a lot of places that you'll see where you'll open a hairline crack every year and then it disappears again, back again, disappears again.
A lot of property owners in Parkside, places with older footings, that are stone masonry in particular, they're notorious for having what we call seasonal cracking. So cracks that might open up in summer and close up again in winter. So that's generally what the problem is. It's generally to do with the dirt. There are other causes of cracking that should be considered as well when an engineer comes out.
Water related, for example, cracks in the pipes.
Water related, material related. So sometimes it's got nothing to do with the footings or the soil. It might have something to do with the type of brick or the type of construction that's being used. So if an engineer is engaged, they should really. It's tempting for an engineer to have the blinkers on and look at the dirt straight away. But a good engineer should really be looking at all possible causes and then excluding the ones they can based on gathering good information, good data.
Perfect.
So I guess for our purposes today, we've got an example here of some of the worst soil.
Just that one up a bit.
Some of the worst soil that you can get in Adelaide. A lot of people may have heard it be called Bay of Biscay, or they might hear Bay of Biscay soil or black earth. Basically, it's a combination of two really bad clays. So not only do you have bad clay, but you've got two bad clays. A really bad cracking black clay on top, and then a grey or khaki clay that sits underneath, that's commonly referred to in engineering terms as Keswick clay. Extremely expensive, the Keswick clay and the black clay, but this is the stuff that basically, when you hear about house footings cracking or fracturing, this is the stuff that's...
This is what's under it.
This is what's going to do it. So what you're looking at here is basically what we call a borehole sample, which is done basically whenever you go to build a house. According to the Australian standard, you'll have to get these done. And what they do is they just push a tube into the ground. This one, they generally go to 3 metres deep. Here at IMPARTA, we get ours done to 4 metres deep below the ground surface. And what you're looking at is basically the ground surface is here, and then every length of the tray is 750 millimetres below the surface. So you can see that all the way up to 4 metres and beyond is some pretty nasty clay. So when you think about the extent of clay that can be causing problems at your property, it's not only the surface clay that we need to consider, but the clay deeper as well, so up to 4 metres and beyond.
I know when we did an extension, we had a soil report done, and they go so far, and then it's not going to be good enough. Go a bit further. Not going to be good enough. Keep going until.
That's right, and I mean, here in Adelaide, we're quite lucky because we've got, as engineers, we've got great data to work off because basically the problem's been so severe here in Adelaide for so long. Because of our climate mostly, because we've got really hot, dry summers. And wet and cold winters, so you create basically two extremes in the environment from year to year. The eastern seaboard hasn't had to deal with that problem very much because they've got more temperate or tropical climates where they've got rainfall all year round. But as the climate changes...
so there's actually a good reason to live in Melbourne?
Yeah, well... Oh, and the footy.
And the footy, obviously.
Despite the freezing cold weather. The footy and the coffee, I'd argue, but that's probably a bit it. But even Melbourne these days, as they're expanding out west, are finding some even worse clay than we have here.
So,
yeah, it's an issue that the Victorian building community is now taken quite seriously.
Aware of, yeah. And I suppose throughout SA, particularly Adelaide and the greater suburbs, you'd find certain pockets that are even worse than others.
Yeah, exactly. So this, for instance, the black earth, known to exist around certain parts of Adelaide, notorious for it.
Yep.
This sample has come from Athelston, but there are instances of black earth basically dotted all across the Adelaide metropolitan area,
Yep.
generally on the eastern side of the CBD.
Okay.
But we have found black earth in areas that we haven't expected. So I suppose as an engineer looking at a house that's been cracked and looking at the clay, there's a number of things that we can help asset managers and property owners
Yep.
Understand what's causing the way their building is moving.
Yep.
Well, first identify how it's moving, informing them why we think it's moving.
Yep.
And then from that we can then help them address basically how to stop it from moving or how to mitigate the movement.
Yeah, so it's not as big a risk or as often.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's right. We provide independent advice about the way to do that, and whether or not structural intervention, so things like underpinning,
Yes. Yep.
is a good idea in your case.
Lovely. And that obviously then gives the owners as well the opportunity to, I guess, budget accordingly over a period of time. How bad is it? Is it going to get worse?
Is it a structural issue?
Yep.
Is it something we need to address?
How often do we need to address it?
That's right.
Yeah.
So all
Is it
those
seasonal?
things, all those things we can help the building owner understand.
Fantastic. Thanks, mate. You kept it brief. They appreciate it.
I did my best.
Thanks, James.